Aline says, "Is the launch of that bag tomorrow?" "And of course I'm going to want that bag. I even sent a message to the store to separate mine and say goodbye." She turns around and says to Willian, "Greasy, what are you doing there?" And Willian said, "Hi Donna Aline, I'm cleaning here." And Aline says, "Greasing, because you only know how to wipe and you think you're cleaning, but then everything gets greasy." And Willian said, "I'm sorry Donna Aline." And Aline says, "So sorry, it's always that. It even seems like she's a poor thing," and tells her to get a glass of water. And Willian asked, "Cold?" And Aline replied, "Of course it's cold in this heat, but what a question," like a person asks something that doesn't make sense, and tells her to go fast and calls her slow. When arriving with the water, Aline asks Willian to put it on, and Willian drops the water and starts to apologize. Aline, annoyed, starts screaming, "Look what you did. You don't know how to serve a water, and how am I going to call someone to come here at home if he doesn't know how to serve even a little water, and now I don't want it anymore." And he tells Willian to clean it properly, and again the slow and greasy flame. Aline walks to the room and asks God for patience. When she arrives in the room, she sees some clothes on the bed and wonders, "What is this here? No, I don't deserve that. I must be paying for all my sins. Look at the sneakers on top of my bedspread," and then starts screaming the "Greasy, greasy." When arriving in the room, Willian asks, "What happened, Donna Aline?" And Aline says, "What happened? What is this over here on the bed?" Willian said, "Donna Aline, forgive me. I went to clean her room." And Aline replied, "Now you're going to take off all that bedspread and wash it with alcohol, for God's sake. You have no idea of things, do you?" Aline says, "Then let me choose an outfit." And when she opens the wardrobe, she says, "No, how many times have I told you that my part is separated by color? Look, this is a mess." And Willian said, "I'm sorry, Donna Aline, I haven't had time to clean it up yet, because you told me to wash and iron it." And Aline says, "Didn't have time? Get in early or get out later if you turn around. I wonder what your house must be like. Crap. I'm even disgusted at the thought of entering your house, and let me tell you something, I want it tidied up today and by color, and I don't know how I'm going to find something here. Look here, you're going to end up losing your job, and job is hard, saw it, and you should value it and call it slow and leave." Willian starts to tidy up her wardrobe and cries for the way Aline treated her, and says, "I leave the house at 5 in the morning and get here at 6 o'clock, and she mistreats me like that. I can't stand it. But my mother says that when God gives an opportunity we have to take it. My God, how is this woman married to Pedro, such a good man?" Later, Peter arrives and says, "Hi love." She greets him back, and he says, "Love, with the rain that is coming, we won't be able to go to the show tomorrow." And Aline says, "What do you mean, love? I already booked a salon. I already bought a dress." And Pedro says, "Yes, but I have to ask Willian to wash that shirt for me." And Aline said, "So already ask and call the event and ask them to put up a tent or something else for me." Pedro asked, "Is Willian there?" Aline replied, "Yes, it's inside, but what do you want to talk to her about?" He said, "Of the party clothes." Pedro leaves. Aline says, "Then let me go see what this nerd is doing. Maybe she opens her mouth to my husband." When Pedro arrives in the room, he says, "Hi Willian, but what is this? And what are you doing here?" And Willian says, "Sir Pedro, I'm sorry." And he asked, "Are you crying?" Willian replied, "Me crying? It's nothing." And he asked, "Did something happen?" And she doesn't, nothing happened. And he insists and asks if everything was okay with her children. And Willian says, "It's okay, they give a little work, but it's normal, it's a child and he talks, but you don't have to cry, no." And ask her to wash that black shirt, and she asks, "Are you going out?" He confirms. Then Aline enters and asks, "What's going on here?" Willian replied, "No, he's just asking me to wash that shirt." And Aline says, "Is that all, Pedro? You can let her do it, everything is fine." And he says, "Love, I'm going there quickly because I have some things to solve." Aline agrees, and Pedro leaves. When she realizes that her husband is gone, she says to Willian, closed mouth, "See, and if my husband comes to ask you something, it's for you to say that everything is fine and that everything is great and that I, Aline, am a wonderful boss, and if you let out a peep, then you'll see what will happen." Hours later, Willian calls his mother and says, "Hi mother, how is Gabriel?" When she has the answer she says, "Did it get worse?" So do the following, take him to the hospital, because it's going to take me a while to get out of work today. As soon as I get out of here, I'm going to go meet the lady and say goodbye and ask her to send you news. Aline enters the kitchen and asks, "What story is this, William?" William starts to apologize and Aline says, "I'm always sorry, and what problem do I have with that?" William says, "No, I already talked to my mother and she will take him," and Aline says, "Don't you need work to bring food to those funds of yours? And another one, you're on work hours and you don't have to be on the phone, and if you continue, I'll take your phone, are you listening?" William said, "That was the first time," and Aline says, "It's then I'm going to confiscate your phone, you greasy, and I can't stand looking at your face anymore. I'm going to invent a lie and tell my husband," and again he calls it slow and greasy. Pedro, who was listening to everything from the beginning, enters and says, "Is it?" Aline says, "Hi love." And Pedro says, "What do you mean, Aline, you're calling the girl greasy?" And Aline says, "No love, it's just that there was a day when she cleaned the things that were not cleaned, so I'm telling her not to be greasy." And Pedro says, "William?" Aline confirms and Pedro says, "Has she ever done anything wrong here in this house?" Aline replied, "Love, you have to understand that no one is perfect, she also makes mistakes," and asks William to confirm. Pedro then said, "Aline, I heard everything and she asked everything?" And Pedro replied, "You called her children phlegm, said you don't care about her problems, and even William, I'm upset with you because you told me you're not having a problem at your house," and turns to Aline and says, "And another thing, what right do you think you have to treat her like that?" Aline says, "Why do you want to solve everyone's problem, now the maid's problems?" Peter says, "Maid? William, how often does she do this to you, just so I know?" William replied, "Every day, she calls me that name and in front of her she wants to treat me well," and Aline calls William incoherent and William says, "How would I tell you that, I could be sent away," and Pedro said, "My God, is this person you have become? Did you go crazy?" Aline replied no, and that she had to be realistic. Pedro turns to William and says, "You can be sure that your son's treatment I will pay, and else you don't need to work here anymore," and William said, "I need to work," and Aline says, "That's what I would tell you. No, I can't stand looking at her face any longer," and we hire someone else and tell William what happened, and Pedro says, "You're going to work there at my company and you don't deserve to be here to go through all this, and from tomorrow, you can go work in the cleaning part and I'll pay you double your salary and the treatment of your son too. But now you can excuse me so I can talk to Aline." So William says goodbye and leaves. Aline says, "You can stay with her, but hire another one here at home, because I can't go a day without a maid," and Pedro says, "From tomorrow you'll be doing all the housework." She asks how you do it with me. He calls her ridiculous and leaves.